Hello and welcome to The Shane Show. I'm Shane Connick. We've been talking a lot about high school sports and its return amidst the ongoing pandemic. Here in New Jersey, I did a segment about it recently on the show. I was on More Sussex Sports on Monday talking about it. And high school sports are planning on returning in the Garden State in about a month from now. However, this is not the case down in Maryland or in that whole DMV region, as high school sports have pretty much already been shut down. High school sports in general can provide a lot of excitement to certain communities. Here in New Jersey, we have a lot of excitement of high school football, especially in Morris County. It brings student sections together, it brings schools and communities together. Down in Maryland, you have 4 of the top 20 high school football teams in the nation in the DMV region. But you know another region of the country where high school football is going on, just like it's going on anywhere, is in Kentucky and Indiana. And for more on high school sports in that area, we're going to bring in WHAS 11 reporter Dennis J. Ting, and an alumnus of the Merrill College of Journalism at the University of Maryland. Dennis, it's great to see you. Welcome to the Shane Show.
Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Of course. So you grew up in Maryland, attended University of Maryland. How would you say that the excitement or just high school football in general is the same or different with Maryland and now in that new region that you're covering in Indiana and Kentucky?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I went to high school, our high school football team won 3 games my 4 years there. So for me growing up, my high school football experience was, it probably was a little less than what a lot of other people may have experienced. So for me, I didn't really get into the whole, high school football hype until really I started interning, as a student at Maryland, when I would cover some high school games just in the DMV area. And I'm sure there's a lot of talent coming out of the DMV, and so that was really cool seeing guys who are now playing in the league. But yeah, really moving out when I moved to Evansville, and now I'm in Louisville. It's very different. People here love their sports. They love their high school sports, and I think a product of that too. Here in Louisville is you don't have a pro team, you don't have an NFL team. You've got great college teams, but especially Fridays, that's what people do. They go to high school football games. So it's definitely a big thing here.
And in what ways have you covered high school football for WHAS?
Sure. So we. In the past years, and I think we're going to do it this year too. We have a high school football show, and so we'll, we've got our two sports guys. They'll go out there and they've got a show. They talk to the coaches, talk to the players. It's one thing I think is really cool is they also profile some of the other cool things that are happening at these schools. Whether it's maybe it's field hockey, maybe it's theater. But we do those shows, and after that, it's kind of a mad scramble of try to get to as many games as possible and get those highlights.
And so in Kentucky and in Indiana as well, the regions that your station covers, are they planning on going through and having high school sports seasons this fall?
Yeah, so Indiana actually has already started. So this past Friday was week 2. So they're in it. Kentucky, which I have more experience. I've done more with this whole process. They just actually voted last week to go forward with the season. So they're actually delaying it. So football in Kentucky will start on September 11th. Now, depending on where you go to school and what district you're in, that could be different. So in Louisville, the biggest public school district in Kentucky, they're actually pushing that back a week further because they want to kind of see what'll happen, as we, live in this world that you kind of have to be a little more cautious.
And so in Kentucky and specifically in Kentucky, seems like you know more about that area in terms of football. Do they have any, like I know here in New Jersey, they have state championship games in MetLife Stadium, at least some of them. And in hockey, they have Prudential Center, and basketball, they have it at some of them at the Rack at Rutgers Athletic Center, different places. In Kentucky, is there something like that?
Yeah, I guess the 2 biggest ones, again, like we said earlier, there are no pro teams. So the 2 biggest stadiums are going to have University of Louisville, Cardinal Stadium, and then you're going to have the University of Kentucky Kroger Field. So don't quote me on this, but I think they alternate sites. But I'm pretty sure last year was at Kroger Field in Lexington. But again, don't quote me on that.
And do you know what kinds of crowds you get at those places?
They usually get pretty big crowds, especially depending on the schools that are competing. If you have a Lexington school and they're playing, in Lexington, you're going to get a bigger crowd. If you got a Louisville school playing in Louisville, you're going to get a pretty big crowd too. But they draw pretty big crowds. I know in Louisville, just even a regular season game every year, the big game is between the two big private Catholic schools, Trinity, St. X. They always play that at Cardinal Stadium, where the University of Louisville plays, and they fill out that lower bowl pretty well.
And so outside of sports, we've been talking about that the whole time. In terms of journalism itself, you studied it in the Philip Merrill College of Journalism at University of Maryland. And what are some other things that you do at WHAS outside of covering sports?
Yeah, so actually, I don't cover a whole lot of sports. I'm a general assignment reporter, which means I pretty much cover whatever's going on, whatever needs to be covered. So I've done crime, I've done politics. I've covered sports gets thrown in there too. I do a lot of stuff with business and industry. So looking at big companies, what they're doing, small companies, and especially now with COVID-19. Really any business is going to have a story because of how they've been affected, what they're trying to do to survive and thrive. So there's really a whole lot. It's one thing I love about my job, and I'm guessing that it's probably something that draws you in too, is that no 2 days are the same. And every day you're doing something new, you're learning something new, and it's that's part of the reason you keep coming back, because it's not going to be boring.
And speaking of the other things that you've covered, and speaking of the way that industries and businesses have been impacted by the pandemic, do you know how schools in the areas that you cover are planning on potentially reopening this year?
Sure. So in Louisville, for Jefferson County, that's the biggest county in Kentucky, they're starting off with NTI, non-traditional instruction. So people are learning from home. They're going to do that until, I believe, September 28th. Governor Andy Beshear, Kentucky's governor, essentially said, I would like students to stay out of school until the 28th, because we're seeing a rising number of cases. We're seeing a lot of these cases that are school-age children. And now, that being said, not every school district in Kentucky is doing that. Some have already opened back to classroom instruction. So it's really kind of a case-by-case basis. But even with NTI, learning from home, I think something that is interesting too is there are options available for parents who say, let's say they can't stay at home and watch their kid. They can actually, it's kind of like summer camp, where they can drop them off at the museum, and the museum will put them in a socially distant place with internet, so they can do their learning while their parents are working. So there's really a whole lot that goes into it.
So have the schools that you were saying, some of them have already opened, do they have like different precautions in place, students wearing masks? Because obviously we saw the photos that emerged from Georgia, where you had so many kids, packed together in the hallways. And obviously that's not everything, but it seems like it's inevitable you might have that. Do you know by any chance what it's like?
I wouldn't be able to say for sure. Again, I think it's every district is different. But I do know that one school that did, they did bring all the students back. They actually have already, closed down and said, we're going back to online because they've seen the cases. And so it's one of those things where I think everyone's still trying to figure out what the best way to do it is. And, is there a right answer? Probably. But do we know that right answer now? Not yet.
And so about yourself covering journalism, going back to that, during your time in the Philip Merrill College of Journalism, what are some things that you did in all aspects of journalism to kind of further your career?
Sure. So when I started off, I thought I wanted to do sports. I got involved with WMUC right away, and that's actually something that I stuck with my entire time. I was actually the sports director for my senior year, which which was really cool. And, just seeing where WMUC sports is now, since I've left, has been really, really cool, because when we were there, we were, just trying to survive, trying to replace broken equipment and everything. And now, just seeing everything that goes on there, it really makes me happy. It makes me proud to see, just how many opportunities there are. But I did that. I did a little freelance writing. I wrote for, I don't even know what it's called now, but it was the Turtle Sports Report. I think it was with Scout. So I covered football and basketball at Maryland, and that was a great experience. My junior year, I started doing internships. Well, I started doing internships my sophomore year with SiriusXM, and then junior year, I was lucky enough to get an internship with NBC Washington in their sports department. And after that, I decided I wanted to kind of branch out a bit, try news, and got lucky and landed an internship with CNN. So that was a big turn from sports, but it was it was a great experience. And then my senior year, I did Capital News Service TV, and I think that really prepared me for what came after.
So when you were interning at CNN, was that which affiliate of CNN? Where was it located?
Yeah, so it was during my spring semester, junior year. So it was in DC, right near the Capitol. So went there about 2 or 3 times a week, and yeah, it was pretty crazy.
And so you were talking about how you came into journalism wanting to do sports. Before that, was that what drew you into journalism itself?
Yeah, I think so. In high school, I really didn't know what I was wanting to do. I knew I didn't want to do math or computer science. I thought journalism was a cool career, even outside of sports. But I always knew that I liked sports, and I figured if I could get paid to go watch games and talk about sports, that's a pretty good life. So that's what drew me in initially, I'd say. But I caught the news bug, and the good thing about it, though, is if you can do sports, you can do news. A lot of it's working on deadline, being conversational, asking the right questions. A lot of it is interchangeable.
And so also about yourself, what would you say is one thing that comes to mind in your whole journalism career about something that if you were telling a younger journalist who might be going through what you're going through, what you went through at Maryland, a piece of advice or something about working in the industry for the few years that you have about it?
I think you've got to want it. I think when I was in school, and you might be able to back me up on this, but you're told about all these, you're told about how important it is to do journalism and how rewarding it is, and and how what's the word I'm looking for? You learn so much about how to do it, and I will say I felt very prepared coming out, but one thing that you don't really know is that they might not explicitly tell you is it is a lot of hard work, and it's your pay's not going to be great, especially when you start out. You're going to work long hours. You're going to probably miss out on some holidays, and so really, and that's not to scare you or anyone else, but if it's something that really draws you in and you're really passionate about, keep working at it, keep going for it. Know that it's not going to be easy at first or even after a few years, but it is worth it if that's what you really want. And I can speak for myself, and I can speak for a lot of my colleagues, but who've done it for several years or some even decades. But it is rewarding, but you've got to really want to do it.
And speaking of yourself again, did you think that you were going to end up in Kentucky doing this the way you want?
No, I absolutely did not. I got a phone call. So my first job was in Evansville, Indiana. And if you're wondering, where is Evansville, Indiana? I've never heard of it. That was my reaction when I first got that phone call. So I remember pretty clearly, I got the phone call. Thankfully, it went to voicemail. so I could do a little bit of research. But I remember like the first thing after I like listened to the voicemail was I Googled, where is Evansville, Indiana? And no, so like if you had asked me when I was in a student, would you be in Kentucky, and would you be in Kentucky for going on 6 years now? I'd say no. But I think it's been really good to me. There's a lot of stories to be told here, a lot of important things happening, and I think I've gotten pretty lucky.
And also one more thing, I know that, on your you're talking about things being worth it, working out in the end. I see on your Twitter you have a nice verification check mark next to your name. How cool was it? Was it particularly cool to be able to have that on there?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think I noticed it at first. I never really knew like how to go about requesting it. One day I woke up and I think my dog might have woke me up, so it's probably pretty groggy. Checked my phone and it was like, you've got verified on Twitter, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Let me go back to bed. And then I was like, oh, like that, it actually happened. I think it's a lot cooler for my friends to be able to joke that they know someone who's Twitter verified. I don't know how cool it is. I don't really think about it too much until they joke about it. But yeah, I guess it is kind of interesting.
Dennis, it's great to speak with you and hear your perspective on high school sports, what it's like out there in Kentucky, and your experience with journalism.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this edition of The Shane Show. We'll see you next time. Catch you on the flip side.